comrades, on the mainstreaming youth development in the current administration. That's a topic that I was given. I'm told the theme of this Lekgotla, it's youth at the forefront of revolutionary change. I'm told, I hope I'm not going to misquote what this is about. I've prepared few notes that I will also make available a copy so that you can make it as part of your package, so that when you report to your structures conference, and these are the notes that we've actually received, so that the knowledge that you have is also imparted to those that you are actually leading. So, comrades in struggle, esteemed leadership of the ANC, Comrade Jongi was here, but we are also leading structures of the ANC and the Youth League, the young lions of our movement. It is an honor to address this Lekgotla, a space where ideas become action, where struggle is given direction, and where the revolutionary spirit of young people finds expression. And today we meet at a time of a deep crisis, but also at a moment of great possibilities. The choices we make today will define the future of our movement, of our region, of our province, of our country. And we met during your Congress, sometimes few months ago, was it in December? And we emphasized our message as a regional collective. The message that we passed in that Congress was a message of unity, was a message of renewal, was a message of rebuilding, was a message of an importance of winning elections. Because ultimately, whatever that we do, the ultimate measure of our success is through the ballot. Because that's where you get to actually see whether our message and our activism is relevant. But we also pass a message of the importance of giving a strategic leadership to governance and also service delivery. And lastly, an important message of preparing for a properly constituted Congress and conferences. And we shared these 5 things because these are the things that the RTT is seized with. That when we were appointed and when we were also reappointed, the national leadership did emphasize that we're giving you these 5 things to actually go and execute. And it's important that, in executing this task, all the structures of the movement, they are taken with on board. Because to build unity of the movement requires all the structures. Would require this conversation to be understood, even at your level. Not just by talking, but by us extending hand, including to those that we differ with, so that we are seen to be embracing everybody. To renew the organization, it's not we don't need to theorize, I always say. A lot of the movement across, there's literature everywhere. We just need to lift that literature, have conversation, and I'm sure Comrade Jongiziza, the coordinator, was doing exactly that, to speak on renewal, rebuilding these efforts of having a properly constituted youth league. It's part of rebuilding. We hope that this goes beyond just you as a REC. You go to your zones, you go to your structures, because including the PYA component, that it's important that we've got structures that are alive. But we are from the elections just now, but we know where we're going. Around the corner is 2026. So we must always be focused to say, ultimately, we must get our people to believe in the ANC, in the black, green and gold. I think that's the ultimate. Whatever policy position that you adopt is that you must, be cohesive. You must be able to pull support behind the banner of the ANC. And you must also lead government and influence what happens and all that. So we shared that message, comrades, and we believe that now that you are a leadership with resolution, we are now here to put up a concrete program of action out of those resolutions, and a program of action that will impact positively in the lives of young people in this region. So we just, as we meet, it's a day after the soccer address, what we call, not the soccer, but the festival of ideas inside council, where we reflected on the aspirations of our people, but where the youth agenda, was well, reflected. And how we narrated the story, we reflected on the 25-year journey. Because where we are now in government, in December we'll be closing 25 years since the formation of Ekurhuleni. So we had to reflect, where do we come from since the year 2000? What has been, the mission of government to build a single city out of all the 9 towns and level administration, and that was successfully done. And thanks to the leadership of the ANC, because to bring, municipalities together is different cultures, different policies, just on probably salaries. There will be discrepancies, and all those things. You can imagine having to mobilize and organize the workplace until you build a uniform, one organization. Build policies together. Just leadership contestation. Former Israel, Ubanbani used to be a leader in Niger. Now, there must be conversation of you're no longer going to be leading and all that. And those things are really a difficulty. So we have to reflect on that. And 2010, post-2010, what then happened? Consolidation of a long-term strategy and plans and systems. 2016, what then happened to take those programs forward into deliverables that you can actually see, whether it's a built environment, the housing programs, whether it's a water, the infrastructure, electricity and all that, whether it's a bursaries and clear lines coming up. But 2021, we've seen a regress. Because all those things we started to see now, because our people, they did not go out to vote, and that affected us badly. And in the last 2-3 years, there's been a regress. We're trying to consolidate that program. But we greatly articulated in terms of what has been the role of young people since this region. Whether you track it in the 1976, what has been the role of young people in the freedom that we're enjoying today, in the factory floor, organizing, young people at the center of that. But also the rich history that we actually have as a region, because we must always draw from history and be inspired and say, we've got great legacy here. All the struggle heroes, heroines, there's so much that we can actually look at and mirror ourselves and say, we want to emulate these great leaders of our movement and become better. O.R. Tambo sleeps here, his activism, Krizani, Mama Beta Gowa. So there's so much that were actually, we'll say privilege, if we use that word, because not other parts of the country, other regions, they do not have the story that we actually have. So comrades, it's important that as we reflect on the 25 years of Ekurhuleni and what the narrative that we're actually building in terms of socio-economic issues. But importantly, this is part of rebuilding. It's important that we understand the ANC was formed out of the struggles of our people. And I think it's an important message that we want to just say, because I must talk about mainstreaming youth development, but it's important that we touch a little on the politics. That the ANC was formed out of the struggles of our people. So it is through the experiences of our people. Whether you go back, Bambata, or before Bambata Rebellion, whether before the Union of South Africa and all that, it was the real struggles of our people when they were pushed back, when they were colonized, and then they had to fight back. And then the ANC was then formed. Hence the call for renewal, and we need to take this principle into action. So as we renew ourselves, as we are reorganizing ourselves, we must always try and connect. Why was the ANC formed and how it was formed? For instance, how you elect yourselves today, and how do you identify leadership? Something that we must continue to talk about. To say there's something anomaly with how do we identify, amongst ourselves, who must lead. Because how the ANC was formed, it was formed by those who are actually leading, different, struggles of our people in society. Whether you are leading in a church, you have a following. So you were then invited into the conversation. Those who were chiefs, they have a following. They were invited into the conversation. And that is why the ANC, we clearly say, it's a national liberation movement that carries the aspiration of those that stand to benefit out of our revolution. Now, how you elect yourself today, you elect a young person, only then you think about what role must you occupy. After you've elected the person, only then you then say, hey, by the way, it looks like you have an interest in sports, so be a convener of sports. And it should be the other way around. We should be able to go to the sports forums, sports federation, and recruit talent there so that it believes in the ANC, so that the policy position that must influence a program of sports is derived from those who are playing there, who are actually leading there. Now, you do not have a problem to connect, because those that are organized in sports can easily identify themselves with this leader of the movement. You do not wait. Now you must go there and be introduced. You must understand a top 4, a cash. Now you must try and find yourself. Kibomang, who are the players here? Who are organizing these teams and all that thing? Now that's why we miss it. Now you must go there and be introduced with no. I'm a convener of sport of the youth league. What are your issues? Now I'm just saying, part of the renewal, we must then have a conversation. How do we identify leaders that must lead the ANC as part of renewal? Now we're saying leaders are born out of community struggles. That's where we find leaders. They are leading already community struggles. We go there as a national liberation movement. We say, but what are your issues? In fact, the ANC is best placed to take forward your struggles. Come and become part of this conversation. So that when we live here, we know, see, you represent a particular constituency. When you go out there, there's young people who are saying, hey man, you went to that Lekgotla. Did you table our issues, our own experiences? Now, not what we think here is, experiences of our people. Now, I'm saying there's a disconnect. There is a disconnect, because it's only now when you live here, you say, hey, silence, who have you assigned what portfolio? And then people, they start to grapple with policy position. They, let me get on an orientation on this function that you should be inherently leading in your communities. So I'm saying we must spend time on this topic, but I'm not brought here to talk about that, but it's got direct linkages. Because when you talk about mainstreaming youth development, one, it means young people themselves must lead their own policy to develop their own perspective. But it's not just the Youth League. The Youth League leads the PYA, but the PYA leads, youth movement broadly, developmental, cultural groups, and all those. They must identify themselves with the Youth League. But if in your leadership there is nobody who understands, who's doing culture and all that thing, how are you going to be relevant to young people? Because you do not know. It's only now that you must find out, about what is happening in the specific sector. Now, that's one thing that we think we must really engage on, so that we strengthen our representation of the actual voices that are coming out of our communities. So as we gather, comrades, let us remember the words of O.R. Tambo, and I quote, "The youth are a lifeblood of our revolution." It was the ANC Youth League that once reshaped the course of history, injecting radical energy into our liberation struggle. The youth of today must once again rise to meet the defining struggles of our time. The struggle against economic exclusion, social decay, and systematic inequalities. So I'm going to present this topic, or this address, in five sort of headings. One is the struggle facing the South African youth. Comrades, our youth are not only facing challenges. Our youth are under siege. So it's not just a challenge. I think when you say it's a challenge, it's an understatement. The youth is actually under siege. And if the youth today is under siege, who are not responding positively, it means the future that we are building will remain unchanged, will remain under siege. So the triple evils of poverty, of unemployment, and inequality have created, comrades, a generational crisis. And we need to confront this reality with a revolutionary clarity. So it is only the Youth League that is able to politics and refine its understanding of society, so that the program that we are putting into action is actually responsive, but is also impactful. So we can, in terms of the economic structure, comrades, articulate that there has been, to some extent, a betrayal of youth freedom. Because young people, they remain unemployed. So the economic structure of our nation continues to exclude the black youth, with over 63% of young people jobless. This is not just a number. It is a national emergency. 63% of young people who are jobless. It must be characterized as a national emergency. And without meaningful transformation, we are perpetuating the very injustices that our forebears fought to dismantle. Our education system should serve as a bridge to prosperity, yet produce graduates whose skills do not align with the needs of our evolving economy. And this is what we've already said, that the type of how we must respond in Ekurhuleni, in fact, with the Tibet colleges who are responding. But we need to make sure that people at TVET's colleges, they can see themselves growing into the university curriculum. That's why we've always argued for a special university, a university of applied sciences, a university of innovation, universities of technology. And we must say, comrades, too many young people are left to navigate a precarious existence of informal work, forced to survive at least the hardship instead of building a sustainable careers. Now, this university that we are talking to, it must balance at this front, without us underplaying the role of TVET colleges that we actually have. So it's important that in our conversation, we are able to draw. How do you grow from a college to a university while the time that you've spent in a college is actually recognized and accredited towards your growth into a university? So those interlinks, that's what we've been arguing about. To say, let's create this university that while we strengthen the artisan program, Mastembe, you must be able to say, I'm going through this route, but you must see yourself growing into your engineering degree and all that, so that we do not feel pressured that the 2 years or 3 years that you've taken to become an artisan is going to then be lost and not be valued in terms of your career growth. Now, comrades, the war on young minds and bodies, so beyond economic exclusion, our youth are also battling a crisis of mental and physical well-being. Now, beyond just the economy, so there is a war on the young minds and the young bodies, because there is a crisis of mental and physical well-being. And it's something that is becoming very apparent, that in our generation, some of these things. Say, I might be a product of the Youth League and identify myself with yourselves. But certain things that are happening, even to my own side, some of this behavior is actually foreign. And that is why you have issues of depression, you have issues of exposure to this and that. And the Youth League must also be worried. What type of, what is impacting? Because this talks to your own development. If you lose some, you leave them behind. Because they are now subjected to depression and other social ills. It means the future that you want to craft is of So substance abuse is rampant, not because young people lack discipline, but because systematic neglect has created a climate of despair. So addiction is a symptom of a broader socio-economic failures we must address with agency. So man mabona behlele khoneni, man mabona babhizi bazamuku emateksini bayathawutha or bayagibelisa lapha batholi 1 rand. You must not say, that's just a nyawupe. It's part of a bigger problem that we must address. Now, mental health is another silent pandemic amongst our youth. Depression and suicide rates have surged in the past decades, yet our healthcare system remains ill-equipped to provide adequate support. Schools lack counselors, and mental health services are underfunded, and we cannot afford to pay a lip service for mental well-being. It must be a central part of our development agenda. You lose your own kids. I mean, I'm a parent, because you can't account for their own development. Now, meanwhile, the gender-based violence continues to ravage our communities, and South Africa remains one of the most dangerous places for women and girls, with femicide rates amongst the highest in the world, including how we conduct our own revolution. And when I entered here, you were talking about how young leaders, young female leaders are being mentored. It's correct that even in this environment, certain things that we do are really not assisting us to turn around the tide. So the scourge of GBV is not just a crime, it is a direct attack on the dignity and future of our society. Teenage pregnancies remain alarmingly high, trapping young girls in cycle of poverty with little no state support for their reproductive health and education. We heard of cries where the leaders of our youth movement, even to just find accommodation, to process accommodation for young females, there's some expectations. And we must condemn it because it's not just there. Maybe when we must choose leadership, we deploy just to manage. Zip revolution. Highly engaged. Their leader in a zip revolution. It's wrong. Because you must talk about it. But the impact of it in terms of what is our conduct as leadership, it goes a long way in terms of society. So education as a battlefield, comrades, and education should be a foundation of empowerment, yet for many it remains a site of struggle. Across our townships and rural areas, learners continue to endure overcrowded classrooms and lack of proper facilities, and a glaring, digital, divide. And I'm sure those are some of our experiences to say we must be responsive, in the area of education. What type of education is being offered? Well, we know in Gauteng there's been a lot of advancement with the type of leadership, Panyaza, injecting technology. So there's been quite a lot with the leadership Matume today that we can actually highlight to say this represents the future education that we want. So while we acknowledge some of these advances, comrades, a lot more needs to be done, as many of our young people are left behind, unable to access the very tools needed to compete in a modern economy. Students in higher education face their own battles, delayed NFSAS payments, inadequate support for TVET colleges, and lack of access to digital resources. And our commitment to a free higher education must be matched with efficient implementation, as education cannot be free if students are left to struggle for basic resources. And that's why even ourselves as municipalities, we take the program of bursaries serious, to say we must be seen to be doing something. Even in the midst of a lack of revenue or financial resources in the city, we've committed that let's have creative ways to actually get those who got money on board to actually assist us to have a responsive, Ekurhuleni bursary or tertiary assistance fund. And that is why we hosted the golf, fundraising, where we had pledges of over 8 million. But pledges are one thing, you must still collect them. Because people, they come, they pledge. When you go and collect and say, man, you pledge R1 million. Now schools are open, can you hand over the million? The person says, no. I was hoping that I can win. If I win that award, that tender, then I can contribute. Now, that's a problem, Mampuru. Now there must be conditions. People, they come and pledge, but on condition. So it means we must also intensify, our lobbying. Who do we lobby? Who do we target to come and play golf with us? Is tender guys. Now, tender guys, they are not drivers of the real economy. They don't own any means of production. That is why they link anything and everything to a tender program. Now, it means we must go for the real owners of the economy and actually organize them and mobilize them to support us to be more responsive in terms of our bursary program. So there's also a crisis of consciousness comrades, and I'm sure it has been nicely addressed. Comrade Jacob Kawa, I saw him was standing here. You know, our comrades, product of the Youth League, very grounded in theory of our movement. And I'm sure a lot we were able to learn. So some young people ask perpetually, what has the ANC done for us? And I'm sure you come across them every day. But if we were solid on our program to conscientize society, this question, they should not be coming up. When a comrade, Deputy Chair, I'm told that you were in one radio station articulating the overalls there, or whatever that was happening. And, directorate remains relevant. Even amid political changes, because when there's a change, remember when we lose power, other people, they came in there, they say, but what is this a youth directorate? While it is a policy position that we actually advocated for and fought for it to be in place, when there's a change of power, it means others, they arrive. The DA-led coalition arrived there and said, we don't recognize this one. Including the EFF-influenced leadership, they said they don't recognize it. In fact, when we arrived, even on the institutional review, it was completely removed. Youth, women, the youth was said, no, we're transferring it to economic development. It must. But remember, youth is not just about economic development. It might form a greater component, but we are confronting all the issues. Youth in health, and then youth clinics. We have centers for drugs abuse and for those who must actually be rehabilitated. Are we responsive enough? Our swimming pools and all that. I'm not sure, but also when was the last time we went to inspect the swimming pools? The task is inspected. Inspecting how swimming pools are they responsive and all that. So we're saying we must then appreciate the mammoth task that we have to do, because now we must go and reverse some of the gains that were won since 2008 when we were leading the youth. 2010 were the formation of the directorate. Now, in our time when we are leading, the directorate is being dismantled. Now, you do not have a choice, because now number a cancelling. If our number a cancelling, we are about it's good youth. Are you correct? You try and navigate to save it. And I must say that Congress, we've gone a long way to actually save, and we are still committed to have a fully fledged directorate. But in the interim, how do you maneuver? You must maneuver and ensure that there's management there, because there's not been management for some time. But how do we refresh the mandate of the directorate? How do we create exit opportunities for them so that you guys can, but you do need to go to a summit. Probably, yeah, I mean, no order. This is a buy, and this is a new policy, a new refresh, and this is a refresh program, so that we can also refresh those spaces there. Abandaba Shabangene, bus board, leading their own struggles. So, I did indicate that on educational skills, the program of the university is in place. We're supposed to host the second university symposium. It has been delayed because the Ministry of Higher Education, you could pick up, that is worried about, how much money is going to be made available from the national fiscal. So the Bonile budget, I approve. Yeah, short, percentage. So you can also see with it, the military university is going to be derailed a bit. So Stelile said, no, if you need passengers and the nine so they are land, they say identify it. So that we can then point to the private sector and say, but we are expecting the university to come out here. But also gradually we can do it, by putting some, temporary structures so that we call it this bonabola. An intake of 500. It means gradually you will get there. I must indicate, comrades, I studied at Valtech, Val University of Technology, which is VUT, here in Kempton Park campus. With an intake over time going to up to 2,000. But we're studying at Rosefield, Kempton Park. Another campus was in PhD, Science and Engineering, and all that. But it's about the Constance Place in Kempton Park. Now, we believe that that student population, it will add to eventually the numbers that are required for us to actually have a university. Now, we have a lot of experiences with Ekurhuleni University. So this call, this noble call, will never be neglected. We're continuously looking at various aspects. In fact, we must finalize the advisory committee, because that body, there is people who are actually leading in the space of academia, who are in business and industry, including in government, who must actually assist us to ensure that this project does not lose, or this call for university continues to be relevant in different aspects. So, comrades, we're also investing in the future ready skills. The National Kaoleza Digital Labs programs, which aims to train 100,000 young coders by 2026, ensuring that South African youth are not left behind in the fourth industrial revolution. So programs like Hackathon that we are responding to at this level are aimed to identify talent in the coding and all that. So when we call for people who must participate there, the Youth League must be seen to be mobilizing in society, so that Hackathon remains and is impactful. I mean, some of the initiatives that are coming from that Hackathon are directly impacting in terms of how we're actually doing service delivery in the region. So health and safety, we're intensifying the fight against GBV, as we've indicated. Even in the Women's Directorate, it's a program that has been very closer to our heart. We are looking at the call for specialized courts, the survivor support services, and stricter penalties for offenders. And our program to fight against substance abuse or substance abuse action plan must actually assist the setup of establishing the rehabilitation centers. Now, we know the social development in the province, they've identified pieces of land in our space that are owned by the municipality. And those pieces of land, we want to fast track to actually make them available so that social development can build the rehabilitation centers to deal with the problem of substance abuse. Can I get you to take? So I'm supposed to be in a meeting, so I'm an hour late already. So these rehab centers, they must ensure that those who work there, they understand the struggles of our people. We must ensure that they are actually youth-friendly. So those are some of the interventions that we actually have responding to the national youth policy. So the youth entrepreneur zones in Katlehong, in Jimiston, that must actually provide incentives to youth-owned businesses. Those are some of the things that are before us. The Siafunda community libraries that will expand free internet access and coding workshops. We must ensure that there's connectivity. The program here, fiber, your Wi-Fi, to connect to all our libraries. That's why you can see, next to the government center, because what they want is an access to the internet. So we must defend these programs and ensure that they continue to offer these services to our people. So on number 3, comrades, what is the task on this generation in terms of ensuring that we reignite the revolutionary flame into our work? Comrade Silence, leadership. How do you reignite the revolutionary so that you are not a youth of the emerging men? You don't hit your hands. Where young people and their struggles, where our people and their struggles, the youth is also there. So, comrades, history will not remember those who stood idling by. The youth of today must rise and reclaim their role as a vanguard of change. When our communities are organizing and mobilizing and they are demanding change, where is the voice of young people? So that the voice of young people is not just found in the corridors. So we must also hear you where where our struggles, our communities are actually struggling. Are you part of the community programs where our communities are demanding a living a change? If youth, let's discuss about it, is it land occupation or land invasion? How close are we with those programs so that we understand the need for housing, whether it's for urban farming, all those things that are articulated in the Constitution. But also holding leadership accountable. Including our councillors. You advocated for them. Yeah? Are you interfacing with them in your communities? But we also need the youth to build systems. Our cooperatives, comrades. When we talk renewable energies, IPPs, or in the city are holding public participation platforms. We had to postpone them because of the state of the city. Young people organized to participate there. Waste management, digital enterprises, even just to run, support in the mental health programs, NGOs and NPOs. Where are the young people? Are we identifying? Are we connecting with them? Comrades, I want to conclude by saying the youth must lead. In 1944, the ANC Youth League Manifesto declared freedom in our lifetime. Today we say economic freedom in our lifetime. And the ANC is not an artifact of history. It is a living movement, and it must be driven by young people. And let us live this movement not as bystanders, but as revolutionaries determined to shape our future. So we must invite you, comrades, to go closer to what has been articulated in the State of the Cities Address. It's not conclusive, because if you can talk about everything and anything that happens in the city, you will not have the hour that you are given. So there's quite a lot more. From the Erythropolis development, because it is young people that must benefit. And I know your call is that, okay, young people are benefiting. But you can actually see, if you move along the R21 corridor, just now, around this time, on the corridor there, on the Punelo off ramp, by lift, because there is no transport system there. It means there is indeed a new economy that is benefiting our people. If you go next to Prasa Gibela project, you can actually see young people Bamele Park, because it means the rail plant is producing job opportunities for our people. The steel factory that is coming, 2.5 billion, must get closer to it. Of course, there's a conversation with China, there are 1,000, China, Japan, and all that. So it's a conversation that we must be closer to say, okay, is it indeed happening? Our people absorbed there. So I'm just mentioning to say the Erythropolis is not just centered around the north. In the east, you can feel it. In the south, we've articulated that the inland port is on the table. It's greatly articulated there with the rail policy change. It means now it's not just Transnet that is able to participate in the rail. Along the N3, all the logistics that are happening from the Durban thing, the trucks and everything else, highly inconveniencing to our economy. But if we are able to resuscitate the rail, we make sure that the city deep, because now when you enter Gauteng, You must now go to City Deep. It's overcapacitated. That new logistics center there with the rail hub, huge infrastructure that must actually happen there. With the trains coming in there, stationing, others are picking, they go and deliver. Including the 1 billion transit line to set up the fuel, the jet fuel to the airport. Those are some of the opportunities that are just before us that are meant to empower yourself as young people. Not forgetting tourism economy. I did speak about it. Asina Basi, just a tourism bus for sightseeing. I'm saying this is a low-hanging fruit. In fact, it's a fruit on the ground. That Melanjeni mobilize abantu abasha bayixosha. Bahambe bayothenga a tourism bus. We go to other agents of government. Bayithola ibhasi la, ibhasi iyahamba idlula la kule hotel lesikuyo during break. Niyakwazi ukuthi niphumule ningene ebhasini, so hop in, hop out. Udlule ubone OR Tambo, narrative center. The future one that we must build. It does not need money of the municipality. You need the private sector to buy in, to come and invest their money. Udlule Krizani, museum. We'll be celebrating the Krizani in the next few weeks. And I know the family will be asking, how far is the museum? So we must resolve some of the contradictions and the issues there. But also we have got proper roads that are supporting our economy in our own townships. We must open up perimeters so that the Tambamo was good to enjoy the pool. If we get maybe because like it's once you have your house Mosemakasi small. Now we are but you should be able to come and enjoy a meal in the township. But if the road network is not accessible into the Kumalo Street and the Kumalo heritage sites and the tourism development. So those are some of the things that we assist with. Galulu's interchange. Kwenzakalana, nali dami, nali park, gabe parking in the restaurant, abanye babethi golf ngapha. There is also a conference facilities there. There's a mountain. What are we saying about climbing? Some, some what do you call it, farm, Kalulu's farm market. Organized by young people themselves, with the assets that are owned by the municipality, we make those assets to be productive. I'm saying there's quite a lot that we need to package, articulate, support young people as part of mainstreaming the youth development, not just in government, but in the entire economy of our region. Long live the ANC Youth League, long live!
Long live!
Amanda!
Away
to!
Amanda!
The youth must rise, the youth must lead. Amanda!
Away
Thank you very much, Program Director. I was given 5 minutes. I spoke for long. Thank you.
Thank you. It's normal. We are used to it. And we are prepared. And we thank you for this time. Comrades, I think you've heard the chairperson has said he's already late in the meeting. So we must really, in our engagement and question, be very short and direct. Don't add. There will be questions or propositions, very clear, direct to the point, not more than a minute. So singers, Kabal, Naskatana, I know Bafazi, I know Chefesi, no battles, no powers of the chair after 5 minutes. Sure, comrades, it's 1, 2, 3. Thank you. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. It's fine. 6.
Thank you very much, Comrade Diaz, for giving us a very key presentation on what we need to do as the youth. And I just want to register a few issues with you One being a resolution of the ANC to say that this Ekurhuleni fresh produce ever an Ekurhuleni housing committee, young people should find expression in boards and strategic centers of power. It can't be that we are spectators when we are saying on the speech, but we are spectators. Also, we have a Congress resolution that speaks about the director say that please speed up the process of trying to find the committee so that they find a space so that we can be able to preside over all the territory because it's about the youth, it's not about anyone else. And the third Congress resolution, Comrade Mayor, I want to know you, and I think it's a collective view on the issue of saying that the ANC Youth League National, it has taken a resolution that all chairpersons should feature in government. So we have a view that Comrade Patose must rise and be an ANC. So can you please start to cross someone so that singers.
Remove from the EFF. Number 2.
Amanda. Thank you very much, Comrade Convener, for the presentation. I have only one question because I noted that in your presentation you spoke about the agencies that exist nationally, the National Youth Development Agency, your years. But I want us to come back in the local sphere of government where you are leading in terms of as it relates to job opportunities, business opportunities for young people. You spoke very little about that. But I know for a fact that local government is a very regulated environment which has policies. You don't just wake up and do things. So the question that I want to ask is that do we have policies or legislation within the local sphere of government that enforces a mainstreaming of youth development in the local government?
Mandla. I'm not going to be long this time around. I'll just be short and straight to the point. Comrade Executive Mayor, you are my alma mater from there in VUT. And one thing that is painful, we allowed the former Vice Chancellor of VUT to shut down that campus, of which were all products of Inanawe comrades in Chairperson. But on the item of university and the delays that we are anticipating due to issues at national, I think we must go back and revisit that suggestion of gradually achieving this goal of a university in Ekurhuleni. Because in our time in SASCO, we had actually advised building from scratch might take long. But if we take the approach of VUT and TUT, where they were converted from universities of from technicons to universities of technology, it might be in the meantime we might be able to garner and mobilize those students gradually up until we get to that solid number where we're able to convert it to a fully fledged university. We had advised that we have about 11 campuses used by TVET colleges, EWC and EEC. If we can take one in the north, one in the east, and one in the south, convert them to become a university of applied sciences and technology, and also getting that support from the 2 TVET colleges, and we had also a UNISA and some infrastructure that was there used by VUT, we can actually garner at least 6,000 to 7,000 students that in the meantime would be investing in and making sure we achieve these goals that we are trying to achieve. And then on the issue of student housing, you raised a very key issue of young women being compromised, struggling with accommodation, with delays through NFSAS, delays through GCRA, and also delays from the very same bursary provided by our municipality. That frustrates young people, and my proposal would be land expropriation is giving you powers in the council. Let's utilize that land expropriation and property expropriation. There's many hijacked buildings. If we are serious about the struggle of student housing, let's expropriate these buildings, allocate them to these TVET colleges, provide proper student housing, so that we protect these young kids from social ills in these communities. They stay away from campuses, they travel a long way. Others, they come from far outside Ekurhuleni and outside Gauteng. And if we organize them in one space, SASCO wouldn't be struggling the way they're struggling with these campuses and organizing students. It would be much easier to mobilize students for championing students and issues of young people. And also on the issue of bursaries, I would say yes, the Golf Day is a progressive approach of mobilizing. But if we revive and strengthen and mandate the Youth Directorate to go outside and mobilize more funds and give them those powers to control and allocate and make sure that they protect that process of bursaries. There's nothing for youth without the youth. Let's try to revive that department or youth directorate to actually make sure that this program of bursaries is not going to die the way it nearly died in 2021. Comrade Pato say, you know, when we're marching to AXA month end of April, we're also going to ask AXA to contribute and assist or meet the municipality halfway in this issue of bursaries. Thank you.
Are there any mentorship programs or incubation hubs to guide the youth for upper startup swap? If yes, ngabe lama lokuzana ngama hubs or ama programs akho ayawenza yini umsebenzi management kuwabheka because fanele nibheke ukuthi iyasebenza yini lesenzayo. Two, how can the EPW program be enhanced to create more sustainable employment for youth?
Thank you, Chairperson of the session. Thank you, Alderman Kagaza. Mine is to ask about the South African Youth Council, especially in the city that we are in. Are we still finding it relevant within our young people? Are we still finding expression as the PYA structures within the young people of the city of Ekurhuleni in the South African Youth Council? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm not going to raise all my questions because now and again we do have bilaterals with yourself. But one or two things that I would like to raise here, the issue which you touched here, the issue of swimming pools and youth community centers. Those infrastructure has turned to white elephant buildings, Comrade Chair, because one, you find that the swimming pools that we're having, example, where I reside in Leoning, that swimming pool it operates when the custodian who has been placed there feels that today they want to work. And if they don't want to work for the whole week, that swimming pool will not operate, and it disadvantages young people because it is not only a place where young people should only go there when they are bored, but it is a place that is supposed to make young people to also be able to achieve their talents, and also the community centers. We have raised this with yourself as we were there in Togoza to say let us revitalize these community centers. Your art center in Katlehong is a white elephant building now. It is no longer serving the purpose. Yet we have got young people who are in arts and culture who are supposed to then be assisted, and we're lobbying yourself to say even if we love to then go and look for funds from the private sector, and we turn that art center to a music school, because in Katlehong many young people are in music, whether they are DJing or bashaya maband or bayenzani, but let it be productive so that it can then be able to upskill our youth in townships. Then the last one, Comrade Chair, You have touched on the issue of Mabasi, maybe on Mabaswama, tourist and whatnot. But I'm saying, we, as a city, we were discussing this yesterday with the latter speakers here to say we do not have a signature event in Ekurhuleni. Now it's July, we're planning already. Namanghola ngiyabeka okuncane ngilungisela ukuya eDurban July. Angikwazi nokugibela amahashi nazo zonke lezo zinto, but I'll be there. There was a Mahube, but in Ekurhuleni as an electropolis, we do not have that, and it's a crisis. Whilst we're speaking also to the issue of the electropolis, it is not key, Comrade Chair, that up until now, our city as an electropolis, a smart city, does not even have a zoo here, where we can just go to Kruger and borrow one elephant, one lion, and just place there, get people to just come in and look at those animals there, and then slow school up until we become like Johannesburg. So we are requesting yourself, knowing that you do indeed take issues of people of Ekurhuleni at heart, would you please look into that, and if you need any assistance, you must tell us. I want to say, ask so much. Siyofuna imali lapho yokusiza wena. Masuka khona siye mama yini. Siyofuna enye yokusiza. We will help you with everything that we have. We'll assist. Thank you.
Just as a shout out, also, there are just few things that I hope the executive mayor doesn't analyze me at the point of an advice, because as an advisor, we can only advise. Some advisors don't go talk. So I must put them here to lobby the executive mayor. One executive mayor, we can see the good work we are doing to attract investment into the city. And while you attract investment, the only issue that we are concerned about is we don't have a framework as a city where we say even investment comes in Ekurhuleni, that investment must at least put set-asides for enterprise development, skills development, just like what we did at Guyana. So it should also be the same thing. That's the reason we're having a very similar concern with the one that is there next to Guyana, the China one. Secondly, I think the chair has covered me into the issue of the SLPs that must be able to find IDP priorities and skills development. Young people are in sports activities, and we are down with this issue of granting aids. And really, there are NPOs that are run by young people. There are creatives, young people, DJs. Even when we call them to events of the ANC, they are saying, how are you assisting us? So how are we looking into that to try and see if we don't bring a similar fund? We have said, Executive Mayor, and we thought that as a city, you must fight the issue of gender-based violence. And we are proposing that you should look into establishing a law clinic in Ekurhuleni, where at least you get interns, even through EPEP and EPWP, you get interns, people who have recently graduated from law. A facility, a coordinator. If those people have cases about violence against their husband, at least they come into that law clinic and get advices. So that is just my few concerns. Executive Mayor, on my input will allow you to just respond to all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. My daughter, she's a second year at the university. She's sending me a long message here. Have you heard of the story?
Yes.
Yes. Sending to me here. The system is failing us as South Africans. It is heartbreaking to think that it's not even safe for children to go to school anymore. How can men like this, how can men like this look at a 7-year-old and have such horrific thoughts? It's beyond comprehension. How is this even allowed to happen? How is it normal that these predators are still working free and the justice system doesn't act swiftly and decisively? The safety of our children should be the top priority. But right now, it feels like they are the ones being failed at every turn. This is not okay, and it can't continue. What is even more infuriating is that our justice system is failing us. As our government is failing us even more. rapists are being let out on bail and few thousand rands, while others are even charged for their crimes. So the story is long. So I must respond here. So I've sent it to you, but you must assist me.
Yeah.
You also respond because when I leave here, I'm going to another meeting. And she's going to be frustrated that she's waiting for me to respond. So I'm saying those are some of the challenges that we must grapple with as leadership. How do we lead? Young people, they are yearning for leadership. They see this one as a fact. People are not seen to be enough. So if there is something that the Youth League has written, or the PYA in response to that, you can share so that I also share. So comrades, let's take note of all the issues that you've actually raised. I might not have the time, but most of these issues are issues that we know. You've raised them with us, you are emphasizing them, that you want to be part of a solution of leadership, you must be integrated in boards and all that. And I think let's appreciate it. We've set the boards, we advertise them with the requirements of qualification. But let's also make sure that we're not that rigid. We allow, if you go appoint to a 5, at least some young person who's got a potential must also, so that it's a learning curve, they're able to reproduce for future. So I think that point is noted. Within the coalition or the area we're governing with others. So Mawia human sentiments in boards, Meluzamu negotiate away. Mawia advert Meluzame so that everybody believes in this work that you actually believe in. So I think it's a fair point taken. Let's speed up the directorate in terms of resuscitating it and all that. Fair point is taken. We've already said, organize a youth summit, go and have deliberations, revive your policy, because there is an Ekurhuleni youth policy. But I'm sure it is outdated. You need to renew it, impact new energy, develop your own programs, even talk about the structure. What is it that needs to happen so that for those resolutions we can take them for implementation in government. And yeah, we draw someone from the caucus to make up space. Firstly, you must be a councillor. You must be a councillor first. So we have 78 ward councillors of the ANC and 8 PR councillors. So amongst the 8, someone who must then find to withdraw so that we can make up a space for young people. But we must also agree that some of them, they were elected when they were young. So what do we do? When we have passed 35, then we must withdraw you. Or the one who's older must make way amongst the 8.
The oldest
I'm saying, well, there's me there. There's Comrade Pelisa, there's Comrade Jogi, there's Comrade Andy, Youth and the Youth and there's Comrade Mamdor, there's Comrade Nomatos, there's Comrade Jay.